Welcome to On the Frontline, the Military Rec Show. Hosted by John Prue, we spotlight the people shaping the future of military recreation and quality of life. In today's episode, we sit down with Leslie Gould, a Navy military spouse whose journey from an entry-level MWR role overseas to leading quality of life programs across the entire Navy is nothing short of inspiring. Now serving as principal advisor at USAA, Leslie shares powerful insights on leadership, career growth, and the evolving role of recreation in supporting military families. From Guam to Washington, D.C. and beyond, this is a story about impact, resilience, and the people working behind the scenes to make life better for those who serve. This is On the Frontline, powered by the DPRS Media Network. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome. It is 13:30 on Tuesday, 3 March 2026, and you are on the front line. My name is John Prue. As the host of this weekly podcast focused on armed forces or military recreation, we talk to professionals in the industry who in some way are making a difference in the quality of life for our military and their families. You might be a MWR professional who directly supports quality of life for our military and their families each and every day. Maybe you are or have been in the military and a user of MWR programs and services, and we thank you for your service. Maybe, just maybe, you are a business or organization who directly supports or wants to support our military or armed forces recreation professionals out there. Maybe you're parks and recreation professional who are just curious about this thing called military or armed forces rec and what we're all about. Or perhaps you don't fit into any of those categories and you just tuned in. Either way, welcome to On the Frontline, the Military Rec Show. All right, confession. If you haven't found out by now, fighting a little cold, so a little scratchy and nasally today. So please bear with me on that one. Just being honest here, and want to get into the show. And as you know, we are part of an amazing media company called Daily Parks and Recreation Show, or DPRS. DPRS Media exists to honor those parks and recreation uh, pros in the community who are um, reflecting their stories, highlighting their careers, and celebrating them and the essential work that they are doing in our communities, including our military communities. I want to give a shout out to Jovi, our producer today. She's the one behind the scenes with the transitions, trying to make us look good. Trying to make me look good is a challenge. In advance, Jovi, thank you so much. Before we get rolling, I also want to thank our founder of DPRS Media, Craig LeBlanc, and the many podcasts he's putting out there. He hosts many of them himself and really making an impact on the parks and recreation industry. Want to thank him for allowing us the opportunity to have this weekly podcast solely focused on military recreation and the great work being done out there. Okay. First cough of the day, maybe not the last. There you go. Today's show sponsor is Outdoor Link. I want to give a special shout out to Outdoor Link, who's been one of the earliest supporters of DPRS Media since the very beginning. If you want to be able to turn on your entire city or community on and off with a swipe of a finger on an app, this is what Outdoor Link does. Outdoor Link builds smart cities connecting your parks, whether it's your park lights, splash pads, fountains, bathroom locks, outdoors, anything powered by electricity into a simple app on your phone, tablet, desktop, and can be controlled from any location 24/7, 365 days a year. If you want to learn more about Outdoor Link, tune in to the Smart Park Future Show on the second and fourth Mondays on the DPRS Media Network, and it plays at 1:30 Eastern Time. So we're going to hear a little bit about Outdoor Link here in a second. We're also going to see a short spot on JDP Management Consulting, um, uh, which again is near and dear to my heart. So Jovi, take it away.
JDP Services Management Consulting, supporting parks and recreation and the essential service they provide. Communities benefit greatly from having dedicated advocates who champion the value of play in open spaces. Such advocacy ensures that recreational areas are prioritized and managed in ways that enhance the overall quality of life for everyone. We are dedicated to fortifying public park and recreation agencies and other related organizations by taking a practical, engaged approach to consulting and training, addressing immediate needs while equipping clients with lasting insight and tools to strengthen their organizations for long-term success. JDP Services, Management Consulting, meeting needs and exceeding expectations.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Update digital displays in real time. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. And even run community or sponsorship campaigns on digital screens. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
All right, welcome back. And Jovi, let's get into this update from the Armed Forces Recreation Network social media sites. If you can pull that up, please. All right, as we do each and every week, we do go ahead and highlight various programs that are happening across the globe from our MWR pros from all of the different services. And we're super excited. A lot of them come through our Facebook site, and we'll show you how you can be a part of it if you aren't already. But we get somewhere in the area of about 150 posts or reposts about programs that are happening all over the world. And it's just super exciting. Every day on my feed, I can see all these different programs, and just kind of reminds me of what it's all about when we talk MWR. This one in particular is a Quality of Life Expo, where they kind of showed the gamut of all the quality of life programs. This was in Guam. Looks like I'm not quite sure the Leo Palace Resort. Maybe we can ask our guest about this because there's a tie to our guest in Guam here. But bottom line is the MWR team took this upon themselves to kind of put this Quality of Life Expo, which really supported the whole community. So really kind of cool stuff happening. And again, Guam is key to our guest here today. Okay, second one I'm highlighting is from NAS Pensacola. Pete Cola and the MWR team does great things each and every day. I could highlight something from them pretty much every week, but they did recently Winterfest, and the theme this year was the World of Sweets. And so this slide doesn't do justice to the many pictures that they posted on site, but just a really cool program that involved the whole family, brought partners in there. They had sponsors that came in and supported numerous sponsors, but one of them in particular, and a sponsor of many of our MWR events across the enterprises in each of the services, was USAA. And again, that's a link to our guest here today as well. So just throwing it out there. This is a quick tease on who our guest is going to be today. But again, great stuff happening at Pensacola and honestly across the board. Okay, it is getting dangerously close. We're 10 days away from the deadline of the gold medal. Last year, I think we had 11 or 12 nominees to try to get to be one of the 4 finalists, which get super recognized at NRPA conference. And then obviously Fort Carson walked away with the grand plaque last year. So for those bases that are still working on their applications, and for those people that say, hey, how can I do this? Might be too late to start the process, but next year it'll come up next time, and a great way to recognize the team and the efforts in there. But the deadline is March 13th for the National Gold Medal, sponsored by the American Academy for Parks and Recreation Administration, which I'm proud to be a member of that and to be on the gold medal committee as well. So get those applications finished up and make sure you get them in by March 13th. And then finally, here's the QR codes once again. We'll keep them up there here for a second, but if you want to get in on the Armed Forces Recreation meetings, you can see the QR codes. You can sign up through NRPA. You'll get a notification and a link for those meetings, which happen the second Wednesday. So next Wednesday, the AFRS team will be hosting their monthly meeting, and typically not only have service updates, but have training in there. Really good stuff. And then we also have a LinkedIn site, not quite as active, but we're hoping to get that a little more active. There's about 250 members, I believe, in there, and we hope to be doing more on LinkedIn as well. So, Jovi, you can go ahead and take that down and bring up our guest here today. So, Leslie Gould, I am so happy to have you here. Leslie is, most importantly, a Navy military spouse, and currently she is the principal advisor of policy and alliance for USAA. So I said there would be a connection with USAA. I said there'd be a connection with Guam. But Leslie, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to On the Frontline. I was mentioning to you earlier when we were kind of prepping for the show. I remember the first time I met you. It was probably about 15 years ago. We were going to APCA. Karen Fritz, the person that pulls everybody together. She's all over the world. Anyways, she did a Navy breakout day at APCA. And I know we both did presentations. I hadn't met you before. Karen introduced me. I think ours either went back to back or whatever on the presentations. And I'm like, oh, okay, Leslie from Guam, entertainment coordinator. That's cool. And I loved your presentation. I remember walking away going, I'm impressed. It was a great presentation, and you were very impressive then. Fast forward a dozen years, and you're the head of quality of life for all of the Navy. So what a career path you took in 12 years. And so I guess I wasn't wrong when I was impressed.
Well, John, that was such a fun time. And I think I mentioned it to you yesterday, and I'm going to mention it here because quality of life and recreation programs were just kind of, I don't want to say I stumbled into it, but I did. I met my husband in 2003, and this is a fun fact that a lot of people don't know, but we're going to go live with it right now. So I used to be a banker back in the day before I met my husband, and I had a finance degree. I was a private banker for National Bank of Commerce in Memphis, where I'm from. And me and a couple of my girlfriends went on a girls' trip to Destin, Florida. And I met a sailor out that weekend, and that was April the 12th of 2003. And 3 weeks later, on May the 5th of 2003, I married my sailor. And then I found myself on an airplane to Sigonella, Sicily. And I couldn't get a job in banking on the base at the time. I just couldn't break into, they had a credit union on base, but I just couldn't get a job. I mean, I was trying, but I couldn't get there. So I walked into the MWR office, which is Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, for those of you who don't know. And I just looked at any job that they had available. And they had, John, this will make you giggle a little bit, but they had a audit clerk position available. And I said, okay, I think I can do this. And Rosella, I'll never forget her. She's a good friend still today in Sicily, said, I just filled that job. And I said, okay, well, what else do you have? And I had my business suit on and my resume going. Yeah. And she said, well, how about payroll clerk? So I did payroll, was my first job in MWR in Sigonella, Sicily in 2003. And I did payroll for about 400 people between local nationals and MWR non-appropriated funds and appropriated funds. So it was a fun job. And then like 3 weeks later, I got asked to, like, Leslie, like, you have run a business, you've been in banking, you know, like, how to run a business. And I said, yeah, that's my background in business and banking. My parents had owned a business, a cleaning business. And they said, well, our tickets and travel recreation office, we need a manager for that. Why don't you compete for the job? And I competed for the job and I got it. And I started working my way up through MWR. And, fast forward, a year later, I had merged outdoor recreation and the ticket and travel office into what we now know as community recreation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John was a big part of that when we did that massive merger for the Navy several years ago. But the point of all this is I fell in love with recreation. And so I did my time in Sigonella, Sicily, and left there as a community activities director, GS11 at the time. And I transferred with my spouse. So we went to Northwest Florida, and I was telling John this yesterday, and some of the spouses on here will resonate with this. I got to Northwest Florida, and what my passion had become was quality of life. It really was recreation. You could see the actual impact of service members when you do an entertainment event or you do an event like you just saw from Pensacola. You see the benefits of your labor right away with service members because they're so appreciative of the fact that you just did all of this work for them, and their kids or their family or their spouses got to enjoy it. And they got just a small taste of respite or rest or recreational pursuits. I fell in love with the fact that you could see the fruits of your labor right away, and not to mention, it's fun to work in recreation. It is fun. If you love it and you love doing, concerts and events, it is your jam, right? And I fell in love with it. But when I moved to Florida after Sicily, I couldn't get a job in recreation. There was just nothing open that was going to pay more than around $10 an hour. And so I had to go back into banking, which I am so thankful for First National Bank and Trust in Northwest Florida because they gave me a chance as a military spouse. And I worked my way up through that bank and I loved it. But it was 3 years of really hard charging in the bank business because Florida was one of the states most hit by the financial crisis that hit in 2008. And so we were I was running a loan department for the bank, and we were just burning and churning at that bank. And I loved that team. But I tell you what, John, when orders came up again, Jake said, where do you want to go? And I said, I don't care as long as it's anywhere overseas and I can hopefully get back into recreation. And we got orders to Guam. And that's when I met you. And I did my first APCA trip with Karen Fritz. I had known Karen, back in Sicily when I did entertainment and MWR there. But when I got to Guam, I literally walked in the MWR director's office, and I had my business suit on again, and I had my resume, and I said, "What jobs do you have open?" Because my passion is recreation and taking care of service members, and I got to get back in here. I said, I don't care if I'm handing out popcorn or I'm cleaning the movie theater. What can I do to get back into this life? And lo and behold, he had an entertainment director position open. And I applied, and I amazingly competed for it, and I got it. And so that's how I got to APCA, to meet you.
So I have to stop you here for a second. This is only part of your journey, so hopefully we'll get to the rest of it. But don't they have those like brown snakes that they're infamous for? I've never been to Guam, but I've heard about that. Did you ever run into those?
Yes. Okay. Actually, that's so funny that you bring that up, because that's a huge deal. Like when you're doing outdoor events and you're planning for it, is that you make sure you pay attention to the brown tree snake, which is a big thing in Guam. They have this thing, and Captain Wood was our skipper at the time. He did this thing called like Operation Mice Drop, and they dropped like all these mice on the island to try to like help with control the population of the brown tree snake. But I tell you what, that's one night Jake and I came home, and we had a gate at our house, which you open and close the gate when you're pulling in. And there was literally a brown tree snake that jumped. I went out to open the gate. There was a brown tree snake. I swear to you, it was like 6 feet long, jumped off the gate. I was like, you would never see me move that fast, right? So it was.
Snakes are not my thing. And we just did an episode with a few folks who work in Japan, and we were talking about some of the challenges of overseas programming. And
Yes.
Again, they had their own challenges, but in Guam, brown snakes, tree snakes.
Brown tree snakes, yeah. And almost no birds because of the brown tree snake. They have the black drongo and another coastal bird that's there, but they don't have a lot of birds. Yeah. It's not like, when you go to Hawaii, you hear all the birds and everything in the background as soon as you, disembark from the airplane. But in Guam, too many birds. You don't see the birds.
Yeah. Interesting. So how'd you get from Guam to DC?
So that was an interesting transition. So my MWR director in Sicily was James Baker, and James became the head of MWR in DC. And he came to do a site visit in Guam with me. And lo and behold, I had known and worked for James for 4 years in Sicily, and hadn't seen him in 4 years because I had a break of service where I went back into banking. And here comes James. And he said, hey, that project that you did in SIG where I merged the offices of Outdoor Rec and Tickets and Travel, he said, would you be willing to do that for the entire Navy enterprise? And I said, I think we could do it. And he said, okay, well, he's like, are you ready to come to headquarters now, which was at Navy Yard in DC? And I said, I've got things I got to do here in Guam first. And so I said, would you be willing to wait a few months? And he said, yeah, I think we can wait before, he decided to launch the program and get it kicked off. So he actually waited a year before he opened that job. And he called me and he said, are you ready? And it was a year later. And I said, I'm ready. I had done what I wanted to accomplish in Guam, and great things in Guam. I love Guam. And then I found myself on a flight to DC, and I walked in the headquarters building in 2014. I went from 82 degrees in Guam to 9 degrees in DC that day. So January 9th, I walked in the headquarters building, and I was so proud to be there. I think when you drive, the first time that you get a job at headquarters for any Department of Defense, Armed Services, Recreation, when you get that job at headquarters and you drive over that bridge, the Memorial Bridge into DC, and you see that Capitol building looking right at you, you realize, you're like, wow, it's going to make me tear up a little bit, but it makes you say, I'm going to make a difference, right? Because you're going to do it for our nation. You're going to do it for our service members that, lay down their lives every day. But every day when you drive over that bridge, when you live in DC, it's a reminder of what you're doing for our military members here in the district. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and it was a lot of fun. I loved that job. So I was program manager. I was a team of one at the time.
Well, I have to ask you, there's housing allowance and various other things. Did you get a clothing allowance when you had to move from Guam to DC?
No, I did not. That is funny too, because my best friend that picked me up from the airport, she had a coat for me when she picked me up at the airport, because she knew it was so cold, and she was worried that I didn't have a heavy coat. So no, I didn't get a housing allowance, but I was so thankful to be there and just have the opportunity. I was humbled by it. But my jam, John, is organizational change, and that's what I love to do. And I think during my military service, that started in SIG and then through Guam and then into the DC headquarters, where I was running community recreation, which was a sub program of Navy recreation at the time. I eventually fleeted up and I was running all of Navy recreation. And then I really started to see the gambit of what quality of life was doing, because I was able to interact with all the other programs that were there and really see. In the Navy, we call quality of life, we call that N9. It's a nomenclature that we use.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, just being around all of those people, like the people that are on your show right now that are listening, about how they give back to the community and really seeing the passion in people's heart for taking care of our military, their families, our retirees, our veterans. Like, when you're around that environment all day, it really just lifts you up, because there is no problem that we couldn't solve together. And I think that I leaned heavily into the field when I was a program manager. I wanted to hear from the field. I wanted to hear the voices from the front. I wanted to make their lives a little bit easier, because every day that they come to work makes things happen in the fun sphere of quality of life worlds. And
well, interesting you say that, because I spent 34 years at Naval Station Great Lakes at the installation level. I got the weird story. I started as an intern and never left, and 16 weeks turned into 34 years. But the last 5 years plus, I was at Sonoma, Navy Region Mid-Atlantic, and again, I kind of took that perspective as the MWR program analyst. It was, hey, I know what it's like to be at the installation. That's where the boots on the ground are doing.
Yes.
This is where we're serving our customers. So kind of trying to take that aspect and look at it differently. And I think the installations appreciate that. And you very much were that way. You did reach out to not at regions, but you reached out directly to the installations and you gave them a voice, especially going through transitions within the recreation, community rec, whatever you were in charge of. So yeah, we can appreciate that. And I think the installations appreciate that.
Yes. And I think it's something that as you take over leadership, in any organization that you work in, particularly in the government for recreation, it's important to keep what's first, which is the people on the front line that are doing that job every day. Their lives need to be made easier, less bureaucratic, and more support, so they can deliver the best programs to our military. Yeah. And I think after having transitioned from Navy recreation, my husband got orders again, and we had to move again. So he said, "Hey, what do you feel about China Lake, California?" So as the Navy recreation program manager, I said, "Look, I'm only going to move this time. I'm only going to do this if I can keep my job. I don't want to start all over again, But what happened with that is James Baker, Ron Vogel and Company, which was in Southwest Region. The Southwest Region was amazing. That was the first time in my career I'd ever been able to transfer in my job as a military spouse. And I transferred to China Lake, California, and that was my first N9 gig. This is where I was running all of quality of life for the military. And at an installation, I cut my teeth on the installation, did that for about 17 months. And then I applied and actually got the Point Mugu Port Hueneme N9 job, which was 2 bases. So it was a little bit bigger operation. And other jobs started to open up at that point. So it's like exactly the same time. So it was serendipitous. And the deputy job, I talked to Jerry Heeb, who you know really well, a great friend in recreation to us. He was the deputy director for all of N9 back in DC. I was in California at Point Mugu at the time. And I talked to Jerry on the phone. He had been a longtime mentor for me. And he said, "Hey, I'm retiring." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Have you ever thought about just being the N9?" And I said, "Do you think I'm ready for that?" And I was at the installation at the time. And he said, "Leslie, anything you'd set your mind to in this world that we work in, you can achieve." And he said, "You'll have a good team." And I threw my hat in it and I got it. And then lo and behold, in December of 2021, fast forward like 11 years after I met you at APCA, I'm going back and I'm going right back to DC in the heart of the winter time again. I think when I arrived in DC this time, it was 22 degrees or something. And it was December of 2021. And I became the deputy N9 for all of quality of life.
Yeah.
And our dear friend and mentor, Ed Cannon, had led us over 10 years as the senior executive for N9. And I thought I was going to have about a year serving with Ed before he decided to retire. And about 4 months after I got there, we were moving and shaking and changing and doing. And I just was loving it. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and retire. I think it's time." So I, again, put my business suit on, got my resume together, and I threw my name in the hat, and I got the job. And I was the first female to ever hold the senior executive position in N9. And so
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And I ended up there. But I mean, along the way, guys, there were a lot of things that I did along the way. And I'm going to share this with everybody that's on the call. If you work in recreation, there are so many opportunities for advancement. John Prue was the one that convinced me to get my certified parks and recreation professional certification. He said, "Hey, Leslie, if you want to serve on a board, you want to give back to NRPA, then you need to get your certification." And so I did that. I got my certification along the way. I was working a lot of projects. I think, and John knows this, and MWR, Office of Secretary of War had given us close to $10 million to build and rebuild some of our playgrounds throughout the Navy. And I did project management for that. And during that time, I got my PMP because I needed to learn and speak project management. And I did that certification as well. I also learned how to be a certified Scrum Master. I got that certification. So along the way, I got my master's degree in business. I got 3 certifications, and fast forward to today, when I started as quality of life director in 2022, August of 2022, I started working on my PhD at the exact same month. So I have been working on my PhD now in organization management since 2022, and I'm getting close. I have 2 more classes and I'll begin my dissertation. So I'm getting close. So eventually I will hopefully be Dr. Gould one day. But
yeah, that is awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit about your new position with USAA here after the break. But I guess I'm curious that you grew in this organization. You obviously did great things to get to the top of the quality of life chart. Making the decision to go in another career path, what was the tipping point for you? What can I ask why you made that decision to make a move to go on?
Well, the move to take quality of life, I think, was to do the whole entire, to move from MWR, which I love MWR desperately, was quality of life was because I had that opportunity to move up through our own organization. And that was in 2020 during COVID, when I was able to transfer. And I was like, okay, I'd always kind of shied away from the housing programs, hard, it was a hard program to run. Shied away from some of those subsidiary programs because I wasn't familiar with it. But what I realized with quality of life is I had such great teams out there of professionals that if you knew how to be a leader and you were willing to listen to your people and hear them, you can do anything and your teams will support you as long as you support them. So the reciprocity there really pushed me into going into a broader aspect of quality of life. I think for jumping to my new role with USAA announced in November on Veterans Day, Juan, who is our CEO, he is a phenomenal human. He announced that USAA was going to launch a program called Honor Through Action. And what Honor Through Action is to advocate through a team of policy and alliances, which I'm on Policy and Alliances Group. It's a brand new division of USAA. And we are going to advocate for change for our military service members writ large, meaning that they wanted to build alliances and relationships in our community with our private partners, with NGOs, with veteran service organizations, military service organizations, and other nonprofits, and use USAA's power of their brand, power of their membership, and their philanthropic arm to really drive legislative change, policy change for our military. And this starts with advocacy. So they established brand new team through Johnny Richardson as my direct leader of Policy and Alliances, and Juan led this effort on Veterans Day. And they had this opportunity come open where they needed a principal advisor in the world of military spouse advocacy, as well as military family advocacy. And the opportunity came knocking on my door. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a way to solidify quality of life changes for our service members. And I can do it on the biggest scale possible, right?
Yeah.
So I dearly love working for the Navy, and I absolutely adore working in armed services, recreation, and quality of life. But I felt that I had to take this opportunity because it was going to drive change for our service members and our spouses and our veterans and our families. And it was going to drive permanent change.
Yeah.
The three pillars that they told me about when they just came up with this last year were they were going to focus on meaningful careers, right? And that means a meaningful career when you transition, not only as a veteran, but as a military spouse. Okay. I am obsessed with career progression for our military spouses.
Oh.
Number 2, well-being. So USAA has Face the Fight, which is our suicide prevention, everything they've worked on for that, but they wanted to focus on quality of life and well-being for our service members in a bigger way. And then third is financial security. So USAA is a life insurance company. They're also a bank, and they're also a property and casualty insurance company. Yep. And they want to focus on financial security. And what I thought was so amazing is this is the first time that I've ever heard of a company that's willing to put, and they're backing this by $500 million over 5 years, to really put dollars to change and then bring alliances together, like organizations that we all have known and love, like Blue Star Families, MOA, different partners, USO that we have all worked with that support military, but bringing those alliances together to solve hard problems and make change. So I don't want to pass it up.
Bottom line, it was an offer you couldn't pass up, or an opportunity you couldn't pass up. Okay.
Right.
Well, we're gonna talk more. We got lots more to cover in a short period of time with Leslie Gould, but we're gonna go to a couple promos and we'll be right back.
This year, we didn't just attend an event. We became part of something bigger. IPRA 2026 brought together leaders, innovators, and community builders, all united by one mission: to strengthen parks, recreation, and the people they serve. For DPRS Media Network, it was an honor to join IPRA 2026 and take part in meaningful, real-time conversations, capturing stories and amplifying voices that matter. To IPRA, thank you for creating a space where collaboration thrives and the future of parks and recreation is shaped together. We extend our deepest gratitude to Amelia and all our partners who made these live interviews possible. IPRA 2026 wasn't just an event, it was a reminder that when communities connect and stories are shared, impact follows. From all of us at DPRS Media Network, thank you, IPRA. Thank you, partners and sponsors. We're honored to stand with you and excited for what's next.
They say it's just rec. Just rec, where kids learn to try again. Just rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec. It's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs, we're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
All right, we are back with Leslie Gould from USAA. Hey, before we kind of move on, I want to talk about your N9 role. You left in December, end of December, correct?
December 27th.
What were in the 3.5, almost 4 years you were in that role, what were you most proud of that you either got accomplished or something happened under your reign as N9? What were you most proud of?
Oh, I thought a lot about this since you brought it up, John. And one thing that I want to bring up is quality of life programs in the Navy is pretty expansive. It's 184 programs, 7 divisions, over 25,000 employees worldwide, 70 installations that are comprised within our 10 regions in the Navy. So it's a large program, has a large footprint. Some of those programs include like childcare, housing, Fleet and Family, where you have sexual assault, suicide prevention, our libraries, Parks and Rec. You've got MWR, which is the gamut of Parks and Rec and libraries, and all of those things that fall underneath it, like our golf, bowling, movie theaters, vehicle storage, and food and beverage. And there's a lot going on in quality of life. But through that time, I think one of the things, and I took a lot of notes thinking about what I wanted to share with you guys today. And there's 3 things that really I wanted to achieve, like right when I walked in the door. And people will tell you, if you take over as a large leader of an organization, if you just spend the time to listen to what your people have to say, they're going to tell you how to solve the problem. And you'll hear it in short order, as long as your ears are open, right? And your mind is open to make meaningful change for their lives. And I kept that important. That was very important to me, that we were hearing our voices from the front. I wanted to know, what were employees struggling with? What were managers struggling with? My job was there to serve them, right? To make their lives easier so they could serve service members and families. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is our Navy had the highest childcare wait list. We were at over 10,000 children on our wait list in December of 2021, when I first walked back into that headquarters building. And between the work that we did, and it was, guys, it required hard problem solving to get down to how do we get that wait list down. And what my child care team, myself, Admiral Lindsay at the time, all of our Navy leadership got involved to solve this problem. Everyone knew what the problem was, and everyone was trying to help us solve it. And we had to do a 3-prong approach. We really reached into our communities to find childcare for our service members. We expanded fee assistance. We advocated for salary changes for our childcare workers. We advocated with Congress to build more money for childcare spaces, both in the community and MILCONs that we needed. We did a lot of work We really, really focused on getting our employee attrition down in the childcare space. And when I walked out of that door of the Navy on December 27th, 2025, our wait list had gone from 10,000, over 10,000 to right around 1,700. And we did that together in less than 4 years. And that meant the world to me, because if members have access to childcare, it is a game changer for them when they're doing service. They can sleep at night. They know their family is taken care of. And it is a big part of military spouses being able to find a job too, as long as they can get childcare. So that was a huge win. I think the second thing, and I mentioned it before, was about employee attrition. So when I took over for quality of life programs from Mr. Cannon, we'd come off COVID, but we had a huge issue with employee turnover, particularly in the spaces, recreation, childcare, particularly in those programs. Our turnover was over 42%. So we had so many people that were attriting. And that was costing us an estimated cost of about $23 million a year to burn and churn that many employees. A 42% turnover rate is exceptionally high. And so what I wanted to do was focus on getting that down, not only to save save funds for our programs so we can give more quality of life programs, but also to improve our work environment for our employees. And so what we did is we did three distinct things, John, and I know you're really, really attuned to this as well. We did a Gallup 12 survey. If you don't know what that is, I highly recommend looking it up. We measured our employee engagement the very first year that I was in the seat. I said, I want to know what our employee engagement is. That's going to tell me a lot about the culture that we're dealing with. We did that. Number two, we established the leadership and training program. Our employees had told me that they didn't feel like they had a path for progression in their career. So what we did is establish that. We made a career roadmap, and we established a professional training pathway. And we established an N9 executive development pathway, which was called executive leadership and training, and then we had professional leadership and training. And this was just to give our employees an opportunity to have a way to move up. They felt that they didn't have a good, clear vision of how they were going to move up through the organization. So we established those two things. And I also started listening to them. So every quarter I would do an all hands call. It didn't matter where you were in the organization. If you got that phone number, you could call in. And one time we actually broke the teams. We had well over 2,000 people on the call. And I realized that you could break teams because there were so many people that more people couldn't get on. And this was early on when we took teams, but they had a voice with me. And we did those three things. And John, that attrition was 42% when I took over. I walked out of that door and it was 25%. And we did that through DRP, government shutdown, all the turnover that we saw from COVID and post-COVID and coming back to life after that. But we got that attrition rate down. That meant employees wanted to stay with us and they could see the opportunity for their career progression.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing I kind of want to bring up. Yeah, okay. The other thing was we migrated to a data-driven organization. And what I say, we were the first code in the entire Navy to launch a dashboard for quality of life. And now the whole Navy could see that wait list. The whole Navy had access to it. If they wanted to see what we were doing in quality of life, they could see their metrics. And I think that was a key indicator of being able to drive organizational change, because that data was available to anybody that needed it. We weren't having to do data calls anymore. Remember those, where you're reporting up to headquarters, everything you're doing, you could immediately log in our dashboard.
Wow, let's not still data calls.
Still data calls, but
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was things automatically feeding into that dashboard, which became essential because everybody had visibility of it. So
yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about one thing you couldn't get done that you wish you could have before your exit?
Yes. So this is a passion project that I've had for a very long time, since I probably first met John Prue in 2011, was that we bring. John Prue came out of the internship program, and he mentioned that at the beginning of the show. And my dream was that we would start that program up again. And we worked on it diligently for 4 years. And when I walked out in December, we had gotten the job descriptions finalized, and they were called a student trainee. So if you're interested and you're in, or someone as you know is in college and they're interested in doing armed services rec, the Navy will be doing it. We did in December, we had finalized the PDs, and we were going to go forward with a project plan with Southeast region to launch the student training program, which is basically an internship program. And figuring out how to execute that the right way was probably one of the most challenging things I faced. There were legal barriers in doing that with the government, but that was the one project that I had left to do that I wanted to get the pilot done before I left the Navy. And I think it's going to get there. I feel confident. I'll probably, be able to, I'll like bug them about it, in a year from now, I'll be like, did you get that student training program off the ground? But I really think that getting interns is key to establishing a pipeline for great people to be in the organization in the future. And that starts from someone coming in like I did and learning the ropes as a NAV2, or handing out basketballs in the gym, or doing youth sports, or whatever it is you're passionate about, and learning how to work in the enterprise that is Armed Forces Rec. And I think that starts, the future of that workforce is with our student interns and our college graduates, and people that are willing to take that baby step, willing to travel, willing to see the world, willing to serve our military. Like, I think it does start with our student trainee or our interns, as you would probably call it. But it is a program that I'm extremely passionate about, is developing young people to realize how amazing recreation was. I think if I had had that experience or exposure when I was in college, I probably would have gotten a recreation degree. I got a finance degree instead, and it's worked out. I mean, now I'm in a financial institution again, which I love dearly. So it's worked out for me, but I love recreation. And I think bringing young people into the field is the key to innovation. It's the key to evolution, and it's the key to matching the spirit of the people that we serve, especially in Armed Forces Recreation. I mean, most of our military, when they're serving, they're in that E1, E2, E3, E4 range, and there are 18 to 21 years of age. So bringing young people into the program matches the spirit of that intent, and they're able to reach them in different ways because of it's a match to a match. So I just love the fact that we were focusing on that, and I just wish that I had gotten that done. But it will be done. I have no doubt about it.
I think so. There's a couple things going on with that. The great Karen Widman worked on a desk guide, specifically more for the MWR side of things from internships, and had a conversation with somebody from the Navy Yard recently.
Yes.
I did some chops on that product that Karen put together, and I happen to have an archived copy of it. So I passed it along. So somebody's talking about it and looking at it, and hopefully it'll come out.
Yep.
Because I hear it all the time. And by the way, through the academy, which I'm a part of, and obviously on the NRPA board of directors, there has been a task group, actually a formal now academy committee on career development in parks and recreation. So there's a page that's been created as career choice for parks and recreation, and we have a link for MWR, Armed Forces Recreation careers, and it talks generically. It's not just about the Navy, but certainly has a Navy spin to it because I developed it. So, so career and getting young people to think about recreation as an opportunity, and potentially an opportunity in Armed Forces Recreation, that's all being discussed at a higher level kind of across the industry. So good stuff. Thank you so much. Want to flip it around. We got a couple topics I want to cover, and we only have about less than 10 minutes left in the show. We should have made this 2 hours with the great Leslie Gould, because we could talk forever. But I do want to ask you, from a Navy spouse, and obviously you're biased. You worked in the MWR crew. You kind of shared your path, but as a Navy spouse, just kind of putting those blinders on, does MWR make a difference to the sailors or military, the active duty, and their families?
Well, I would say, and I have a lot to give about this. I think military spouses that work in military recreation, I think a lot of them are juggling not only trying to make a career and make a stage for where they are, but they're also a lot of times they're the CEO of the household. I hate to say that, but what we are as military spouses, like they're the ones on the home front while the military are off on deployments, or they're all serving or training or whatever it is they're doing. And the spouses that stand behind are the meaning. They are what readiness is. And I heard this literally a couple of days ago from one of our Navy spouses that her husband was head of Joint Chiefs, Mrs. Grady. And she said, military readiness is family readiness. And I think about what quality of life does. And one of our focus areas for USAA is on improving quality of life for our active duty members, veterans, spouses, serving those that serve, and the advocacy for them. And it was interesting to be able to present like the challenges that some of our military have faced with either lack of recreation opportunities because of program struggling, or program cuts, or lack of funding, or lack of availability, and then seeing what they struggle with having challenges with access to childcare, or having challenges with finding, like, honestly, like a library they can use in their community. That seems like those are basic needs. I heard someone at USA say, "Wow, that is some of those things that you're talking about. Those are basic needs, Leslie." And I said, yes, those are basic needs, but they are high impact quality of life. So if you work in Parks and Rec, you do a sports team, you do anything in the world in the field of recreation or MWR services, those things are the meaning of supporting resilience and supporting readiness. You have to have a place as an active duty or a family member or as a caregiver for like an exceptional family member. You have to have a space where you can recreate. You have to have the ability of taking a vacation and having a respite for your mind. You have to have a place where you can stay fit. You have to have a place where you can get access to nutritional food. All of those things seem like basic needs to the world outside of us in private industry, like those basic needs. But for military, many years, that quality of life, it has always been looked at as something that supports the 3 R's, which in Armed Forces Recreation, we call that resilience, retention, and we do recruitment. So those are your 3 R's. But we always say that quality of life supports those 3 things. But what I think is happening now, John, is that people are recognizing that quality of life is not something that is like a side dish that's not on the same plate of food that military would eat, right? It's not a side dish. Quality of life is a fundamental part of navigating and thriving in your life as a human. So serving in the military, you have to have access to these resources that allow you to have that resiliency, allow you to get rest and relaxation and a reset, because it is fundamentally part of being in a thriving community. And so one of the things that we talked about extensively at USAA, and I've only been here on the team, since January 4th, is that quality of life are basic needs that really make a difference and really help service members overcome challenges and be able to do their jobs every day. And their families getting access to that program is so important. It's not something that's an afterthought. And I think what we're seeing with Congress, even for the National Defense Authorization Act that's been signed for this last year, but the one they're working on now, is there's a lot of advocacy to codify quality of life. It's not something that's on the side anymore. It's something that's front and center that we have to do for our service members and their families.
That is awesome. And looking forward to possibly partnering too. NRPA, through our board of directors, we have decided to kind of make On the Hill Day, which they've always done, kind of go after legislation and push public parks and recreation. We are going in May and going to the Hill to talk
Yep.
to congressmen and senators. And I know you're in the area and you're passionate about it. Maybe we need to kind of fold you into this whole thing. Or if nothing else, let's go out and have dinner or something while I'm in DC. But that is good stuff. And again, my emphasis will be kind of looking at MWR from a recreational perspective. That's the voice I have on the board for NRPA, so I try to represent the best I can. So with that, we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to look through that the eyes of Leslie Gould in terms of what do you see the future of Armed Forces Recreation or MWR being, and again across the services, what's going to be different 3 to 5 years from now compared to what we're doing now? What's changing? What do you see in the crystal ball?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that we're going to see more people gravitating towards the career field. I think that with the emphasis on armed forces recreation, with not only your service members but their families, your the different data that we have now that is showing the benefit, that is crystal clear, with the use of tools like AI and different strategies that we're researching in the university spaces about the benefits of quality of life. I think you're going to see that career path grow and expand. With Armed Forces Recreation, I think what you're going to see is the services coming closer together to leverage consistency and standardization. I think with great responsibility comes great work. And so as the programs and quality of life are elevated, they're becoming more focused programs of record for the armed forces. That means they have a higher attention placement, meaning that the recreation professionals that work together at the Army, at the Navy, at the Air Force, they are really going to have to focus on delivering consistency that is not just broken down by this service does this service does that. They're going to need to come together and have a standard to meet the program requirements of what a really high focus program is going to look like. And so I think you're going to see professionalism. I think you're going to see more standardization. I think you're going to see some leveraging of efficiencies by joining together in certain aspects of quality of life. And I think you're going to see quality of life, like I said, is yes, it's a core program, but people are treating it like a core program. It's not something that you can't sacrifice housing to build more runways, right? You have to have those are on level playing fields as being important. So the military services are looking at that. Like housing is just as important as childcare is to active duty members. And it's just as important as having a runway to land your planes on. You got to have all three of those things. You've got to have these services available because something dips if you don't have that balance of resources available. And service members honestly need it. And I think they expect it as a benefit of employment with the government to be able to have access to quality of life that can really help them thrive and have like a well-rounded, well-balanced career. And so I think that's what you're going to see.
That's great. That's great insight. Leslie, thanks so much for the time today. And let's stay in touch and good luck with the new position. So
Thank you.
really appreciate that. That's it today on the front line. Thanks again to Leslie for the amazing story and journey in her profession. And let's be honest, her most important role as a military spouse. Remember, AFRN Network, their meeting is next week, their March meeting. So remember that, sign up for that. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place, for another great episode. So on behalf of all of us at DPRS Media and On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show, I'm John Prue, and we're out here.
Before the game, before the lights, before the pressure, there's a moment most people never see. Welcome to The Athlete's Commute, a podcast distributed by DPRS Media Network, co-produced by Her Sports, and hosted by Jordan Ziff. Each episode, Jordan gets behind the wheel, driving athletes to practice, to training, to game day, while getting to know who they really are beyond the jersey. The mindset, the grind, the sacrifices, the moments no one talks about. No scripts, no filters, just real conversations in real motion. Because every athlete has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. This is The Athlete's Commute. Buckle up.
It didn't start with a studio, or a big budget, or a perfect plan. It started with belief. Belief that stories matter. Belief that voices deserve to be heard. Belief that community is powerful. What began as a single conversation has grown into something far bigger than us. Today we pause, we reflect, and we say thank you. To our guests, thank you for showing up, for being honest, for trusting us with your stories and letting the world hear them. To our partners and sponsors, thank you for standing with us when the vision was still taking shape. Your belief gave this network its foundation. And to our audience, the ones who listened, who watched, who shared, who believed. You didn't just support DPRS Media Network, you built it. This past year changed everything. We grew our shows, we raised our standards, we reached new communities, and we told stories that needed to be told. From parks and recreation, to sports, youth, technology, and culture. We learned something important. Growth isn't about numbers, it's about impact. As we grow, our mission becomes clear. Our mission is to create media that matters, media that educates, media that inspires, media that connects people through honest, human storytelling. To spotlight the people, the programs, and the ideas shaping parks, recreation, sports, and the future of our shared spaces. And our vision is bold. We envision a media network that doesn't just document the world, but helps shape it, where local voices spark global change, where communities see themselves reflected, and where media is a force for good. The future ahead is bigger than any single episode. More voices, more stories, more collaboration. Live events, original films, deeper conversations, and a growing community united by purpose. From episode 1 to episode 400, thank you for believing when it was hard. Thank you for staying when it was uncertain. And thank you for walking this journey with us. This is DPRS Media Network, built by community, driven by purpose, powered by stories. And we're just getting started.